Of course, we know, and we heard a lot about this Torah portion, the manna, which was big, obviously. So I'm just going to go quickly through what this Torah portion is and kind of the highlights of it, because there's so much in it. It's the portion, Beshalah means when he sent. So the Israelites are sent out of Egypt to leave slavery. And I have to be honest, I'm just, when I really got into reading this all week long, because I had no clue what I would be saying, what the Lord would tell me. And I'm new to the Torah, to the Old Testament. I was raised and brought up in the Catholic Church, and we didn't do a lot of Bible reading. And the biggest, of course, the New Testament was easy for me to understand, and I would read into the Old Testament. I couldn't grasp it. But now coming back to my Hebraic roots and back to the roots of, now I'm getting a fuller understanding. God's revealing so much, and it's coming together. Anyway, so because I am just learning the intensity of these words, I'm going to just kind of summarize what the portions were, and I'm going to talk about a little bit how the Lord showed me some pieces of it that became kind of stuck out with me. So, of course, the 5 chapters, in the 5 chapters, it's the children of Israel walked out of Egypt, and they were camping at Sukkot. Then they were led by the pillar of fire and cloud. And when they came to the Red Sea, they found it blocked on one side by a mountain and by water. And Pharaoh's chariots were, quickly coming upon them. God opened the sea. Israel walked across the land, the dry land, and then we learned of the first song of Moses, the song of deliverance. And once the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea, they learned about the Sabbath and the manna. And God gave them quail to eat, and they drank from the water from the rock. And finally, Amalek challenges Israel, and Joshua and other men go out to fight Amalek while Moses' arms are held up by Aaron and Hur, and Amalek is defeated. Okay, so that's the summary of what was in this what was in the Torah this week. And the Exodus, okay, the release of the Israelites from slavery to enter into the Holy Land. And the revelation for many who go before, this isn't a new revelation to most, but to me, it became, it was a revelation. So, this is a continuing story for us today. Yeshua freed us from slavery, from sin. And we're continuing. Now we're on a journey into the eternal Holy Land. So it's a continuing story. It's not something that just happened in the past and is over and done with. And another revelation that came to me was the pillars of cloud and fire were Adonai himself. I didn't understand that before. But that was him himself. He was with them. Hashem, he was there. And just as he went before them then, he continues to go before us now. We don't see the cloud and the fire. But we, in our spirit, we feel the cloud and the fire. And we know he's there spiritually. And we need to pray that God reveals himself to us in that way, so that we always are confident that he is there, and that we can see more of him. I had to make notes, because I know I wouldn't remember anything, and I prayed all of this a lot. Another thing that was revealed to me is that when Pharaoh changed his mind and he pursued them, and Pharaoh represented death. And the Israelites had just come out of slavery, and that was their master. That's what they knew. That was, even though it was horrible, that's what they knew. So it was understandable why they were frightened and why they wanted to turn around. They could possibly panic and want to turn around because they thought they were going to die. And it was difficult for them to trust that. They didn't know his and they didn't understand really the full revelation of what was happening. So even though it was horrible, because it was death, that's what they may have chosen. But again, isn't this us right now in our lives? We're slaves. We can become slaves to worldly things. You know, jobs, money, friends, things that we get concerned about in the government, sports, the Super Bowl, and the list goes on. And we can get caught in the weeds, and we take our eyes off our Master at night. So how do we keep ourselves connected? Why do we keep ourselves connected to slavery? Sometimes it just seems easier to plow through the things we know and the things of this world and what's comfortable for us, and tend to put God on hold. But we must keep our eyes on the prize, Yeshua and all He is. Another major thing in this Torah portion is seeing Yeshua. I didn't understand this before either. Yeshua's salvation. This was about salvation. So the main character, and it's proof, too, that He is throughout the Torah. He is the Torah. He is the Aleph Tav, the beginning and the end. And also, this was another thing, that the right hand represents Torah, and Yeshua is the living Torah. And Moses was instructed throughout this to lift his arms, to have these things happen, to obey Adonai, to make these things happen. In Exodus 14, the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." Yeshua was there, stretching out. That was the power of Him. Exodus 17, as long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. And that's it too. It's like whenever we kind of lose touch a little bit as we go along, then things can kind of slump for us a little bit, you know. But when we raise Him up in us and remember to raise Him up, then things are where they should be. Well, obviously, one of the things, and I think this was brought up too, which is pretty interesting, one of the things that runs through these passages that came through the new what Paul had talked about, which struck me was complaining. Because I remember reading these in the past, reading this passage in the past and thinking, oh, all they do is complain, they complain, they complain. I mean, without any even trying to feel or try to understand what they might have been going through. I was reading words. But they complained to Moses every step of the way of the journey. They thought, you know, they didn't understand what was happening. And, but, you know, I have to be honest. I complain along my journey, and I think we all do. You know, things go along pretty good, you're comfortable, life just is, you know, you can handle whatever's given you. Even if it seems a little bumpy, you can handle it. And then, like, something unusual will drop in, you know, it becomes hard, and I start to complain. And I might even say something like, I'm not complaining, but truthfully, you know, what is it, you know? And somehow I think that negates the fact that I'm complaining. But, you know, we can always find a reason to complain. But we have, you know, they didn't have the insight of Yeshua at that time, but we do. So, truthfully, you know, He's everything, He's that promise. And yet we still complain. But one of the things that had struck me even throughout this whole thing is I couldn't imagine what Moses and Aaron were feeling. I mean, this was like overwhelming. I mean, people were hating him. They were just ready to stone him, to kill him, you know, along the way. Yet he remained obedient to God. I still don't have quite the insight of everything about Moses and what drove him beyond that. You know, how his connect. I wish I knew Moses to talk to him. Like, what did you feel? What was your connection? How did you hear from God? What did you know? You know, And Adonai is so amazing. You know, he's been putting up with us for thousands of years. And I don't know why, except there is one reason why. It's because he loves us, and because he made us to love him. And that's it. And his plan is for us to return to him and be with him. That's the whole thing. All these years, all this, everything, this whole story from the beginning to the end is all about coming to him and being with him, as one with him. Last week, you know, when Rabbi asked me to do this, of course, my first sense was, okay, maybe I can leave town, or I have something I have to do, or maybe this is the week that Adonai will maybe take me out, because this would be easier. So that would be good. Then I'd have an excuse. But of course, it was momentary, and I got over the panic, and so I figured the Lord had some reason for me to do this, and I give it to him. So in that vein, I decided to stop thinking what I would say, and I just kept praying, and I kept reading the Word intently and listening to other. I listened to rabbis preach on this, the Beshalach, and other pastors to just kind of get more insight and depth into what these words meant and understanding. But I kept praying. I still didn't know what really the Lord wanted me to say. I knew I couldn't repeat and copy down. It would have been easy to copy down someone else's sermon, I guess, but that wasn't how it was supposed to be. And it wasn't until about the middle of the week that I heard this word faithful, and it just hit me, and it just spoke to my spirit. And I think I was eating breakfast, and this was like strong. So I said, okay, faithful. So I kept repeating the word all day long. It was like almost to myself. But I was there, and I still didn't understand where that was going to go, but I just kept doing it. So I looked up the definition in Hebrew. In Hebrew, the word, it comes from the root word aman, which means firm, and also in English, faithfulness, the adjective is firm in one's allegiance to someone or something. So that's what it means, firm. What did you tell me about Aman, the root? Amin? Yeah. So you get the idea. Well, I kept thinking about Moses. I couldn't get Moses off my mind. He had to go on faith. And Adonai gave him an enormous, supersized calling. I mean, this, to me, it's still, I can't get it all. And he only had his faith to go on, as I see it. And he was faithful. Imagine being faithful through this journey. I mean, this was tremendous. You know, I thought I wanted to turn around and flee from this. And he had all these people. You know, whoa. So it started becoming clear to me. And I believe the word Adonai wanted me to bring was to remind us to be faithful to, as Moses was, as Yeshua is to us. In these times, the times we're living in now, we're experiencing and seeing things that really some things just seem incomprehensible to civility. But we are to remain faithful. Adonai, our God, our loving Father, always and always will be faithful to us. And that's never going to change. And I did find through all of this, I didn't know where, I couldn't find, I was saying, well, in all of this, Lord, where is the word faithful? And then just this morning, at the last minute, I found in Exodus 14, Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians will see you today. The Egyptians who see you today will never see you again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Judy. Amen.
Baruch Hashem.